Hey, welcome back. We're glad to see you. Talking today about the COVID-19 or the novel coronavirus. It surfaced in 2019, hence it got its name COVID-19. It caused actually a global health crisis that turned into pandemic event. There are different countries worldwide handling this pandemic event or COVID-19 differently, quite differently. And they're trying to control the intensity of the spread of the virus itself. The virus is very contagious. It spreads through the droplets that when you sneeze, and can live up to from hours to days on the different surfaces that it lands. So therefore making it very easy to get contaminated with it and to spread among the population. The other thing about the COVID-19 is that actually you might have it, and as most of you guys know, I've been reading in the news, I mean everything is just, we're talking about this, everything you turn on the TV or wherever is going to be talking about the COVID-19 one way or the other. And it actually can infect people and you won't have any side effects till like 1-2 weeks later. Makes it very hard to actually detect and isolate as well too. Because of this, they recommend to have few things in order to contain the virus itself. And different countries, as we said, different continents, they are approaching this differently. Like in Africa, Asia, Europe, and South Africa, American countries, they're taking different approaches like social distancing, or some of them are more liberal, just recommend, some of them actually are enforcing the social distancing. Continue with this, we know that US is getting hit right now the most, because actually there it started a little bit later than everywhere else. It started, most of media are reporting, there are different reports, but most of the media so far we heard it started in Wuhan, China, and moved from there. So we start with South Korea. South Korea seems to be handling the situation very well so far. Until to this moment, there are 10,683 cases of COVID-19. And there are reported 237 deaths. One of the things that they did a social distancing right away to put it in order. And also they did a phone booth test, which what they were reporting, they it increased the speed of about 7 minutes exam test that actually were performed under very sterile conditions. And it was like about 10 times faster than a regular test that you could actually get the swab and run the labs and then find out, and takes longer. But they were able to do the phone booth test, which is they're like a little bit they look like really like phone booths like they used to be before. Not anymore, you can't find that easy anymore because they're kind of gone because of cell phones and so on. But those phone booth tests, you get the phone booth test because you have gloves, almost like if you work in a healthcare industry, or if you have ever seen a movie or something in the labs, you have gloves that go through the glass. You have a glass in front, and you put your hands through the gloves, rubber gloves, that actually you don't see the patient. You see the patients, but you have no contact with that patient. You just get the DNA sample through their mouth, and then you take that out inside while being able to sterile and everything, put them in a place and run the test right away. So it's a very quite good method, and actually worked very well for them too. It seems like they are plateauing the curve too. They have few cases, but it's not exponentially growing. The main thing here is to stop growing exponentially. So the other thing we have to do is the Italy. We go down to Italy. Italy has about 181,228 cases right now, with 24,114. So about 24,000 deaths. So about 181,000 with 24,000 deaths. In the beginning, Italy didn't follow the strict social distancing. So one of the mayors in Milan, or one of the mayors in Italy, so Milan mayor, had a thing that says a motto that says Milan doesn't stop. Well, that caused more like delaying on the hunker down or delaying in social distancing. The people didn't take seriously, and then it got out of the hand. So right now they are enforcing the social distancing, but they started a little bit too late, and it causing a little bit problems with that part. We go down, we have Senegal. So Senegal, it has right now 412 cases only, and has only 5 deaths. They were very well prepared because they are in place during the Ebola breakout in a region in 2014. And also they have the Pasteur Institute, which is which World Health Organization works with them very closely, is one of the labs that partners with WHO, and that is one of the creator, and the lab actually is one of the creator of the first yellow fever vaccine. So this helps with being in place, being very aware of the situation, and they're working with a British lab or British biotech firm. The guy who invented the pee-on-stick pregnancy test, they're actually creating kits to be able to detect the virus within 10 minutes, and that is going to be about $1 per kit, so you can do it actually yourself on your own. So Singapore, it's handling the situation very well. Actually, they're doing everything right. So they have 9,125 cases, but they have only 11 deaths. So the death rate is very low compared to every other countries. 17 years ago, they went through the horror of the SARS at the time, other virus that was spreading, but wasn't it wasn't contagious as COVID-19. So they had everything on place, and then they developed a robust infrastructure for dealing with pandemic. It worked very well for them. They have first, so the country had ability to isolate everything, especially stop all the flights from China, everything late January. Ability to test about 2,000 people a day, with about 140 contact tracers working with police to outline each patient and case history. So then they develop a serology test, which they go and they test if they have antibodies for the COVID-19, and they work that way too. Testing is free, and also the quarantine was mandatory too. So it's not a recommendation, but is mandatory to quarantine if you've been tested with COVID. Other country we're gonna talk to is also Tunisia, which has only 884 cases and 28 deaths. They do same thing. I mean, these places we're talking about, they practice the social distancing very, very strongly. Even through mandatory, or actually in Tunisia is a curfew. So among the African countries, Tunisia is taking a particularly hard line against COVID-19. The country reports about, like I said, 884 cases right now, and they have a public curfew in place to control the possible spread. So from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. each day, both police officers and soldiers will be patrolling the area and the cities to make sure no one leaves the home and everyone stays at home. The only exception is the local need medical attention, other locals when they need medical attention, otherwise no outdoor activity is allowed. Well, the contrary from this is the Italy. So when the outbreak started, they were in northern Italy, like in the regions they got hit harder. People were still, going. They had like a social distancing and stay-at-home orders in place. Well, the other parts of Italy, they didn't really care much. They were going out playing basketball. They're going to the movies. They're going to the, events, outdoor events, and so on. Same thing. And it's hard to understand this from the one perspective because these different countries, they have different culture in place too. Italy, it's very, I would say, more democratic to the point that is people are not, they are, the culture itself is to go out more, to talk to each other, to gather, socializing more. Hence, they have other parts. So having all these together into this, it is that we really, really need to have the social distancing in place. If we don't have social distancing in place, we cannot slow down the progression or the intensity of spreading of this virus. And knowing how contagious it is, that's the only way that we can stop it or slow it down. The other thing is that other people, they look into this and think that, okay, the economy is going to get hurt, but we have time to get to the economy. Let's slow down this so it doesn't grow exponentially, flatten the curve, and then we can talk about the other things. If you don't do this right now, we might actually lose our chance, because later on, if we don't get it right, flatten the curve, and we open everything and we don't do the social distancing anymore, we're gonna find out that back in May, let's say, like lately, like later on May or so, we're gonna have the spikes again go up. And then if you close the economy down again, we know that it's gonna take 2 weeks at least to stop. and then it's going to take another 3-4 months to have it under control, everything. So we need to do it right now. And if we do it right now, then we don't have to deal with that later on. It's almost like doing something. If you do something right at the first time around, then you don't have to deal with the problem later on. But if you postpone this for later on, then that clearly we're going to have to deal with it later on, and then can cause us more problems as we go.
What about America is so great is that we are allowed to voice our opinions in topics that a lot of people are against. And that's the best part, is to listen to the other side of the people that's going against your own opinion. So you could formulate your own perspective and understand what other Americans are thinking. So you could bridge the gap between the two different perspectives that we have. And today I'm going to play the devil's advocate and go against social distancing during coronavirus epidemic. A lot of people is going to hate me for this, but I'm going to go on this perspective of people is going to not like. And there's a lot of senators and the president are against, not really against social distancing, but they want the economy to go back up. That's why they're trying to speed up the recovery rate of American economy itself. And one of the major factors that a lot of people pay a lot of focus and attention to is social distancing. The number one case against social distancing is the detrimental to the economy itself. A lot of people are out of job, a lot of small businesses are closing down, a lot of restaurants are closing down, they're going bankrupt. So it's causing a lot of detrimental to a lot of people. They can't afford the rent that they're living at, the food, the utility. There's a stimulus check that's going out to every Americans out there. And how long can we sustain ourselves to give Americans $1,000 each month until the economy recovers, which is a big question itself. So right now we're trying to start the economy as soon as possible regarding to it. Because a lot of people are not paying rent. The purpose of the social distancing is for the mortality rate. It's for the people to stop the spread, flatten the curve of the coronavirus itself. So if we find another way to flatten the curve or decrease the spread of the coronavirus, then it'll be a positive thing. All we do is focus on social distancing. There's other factors that we need to consider. Masks, the PPE, protection equipment on ourselves, like masks, gloves. We need to continue washing our hands, cleaning our clothing, and keeping ourselves from distance from each other. But we focus too much on social distancing. Not too many studies on social distancing. What is the real number? How far are we to keep ourselves apart from the other people? A lot of them are taking a factor that 6 feet is good enough, but there's some articles that I'm reading that sometimes the virus could spread to 13 feet apart itself. So many different factors, there's so many unknowns out there. Certain countries like Sweden are taking a different perspective on social distancing, allowing the economy to go back up again. Another thing that people against social distancing is the mental health itself that brings among the American people. The major healthcare care about is the mortality rate, the death rate of social distancing or the coronavirus itself. Let's look at the social distancing, for example. In 2007, during the SARS epidemic in Toronto, they took a small samples of the people there and find out 28.9% of the people there had PTSD when they self-quarantined themselves, and 31.2% had depression itself. And another study in the NIH to find out that people that has depression has a mortality rate of 20%, which is pretty high. So you consider that into a factor. In American society, when majority of the Americans are being self-quarantined, there's a mortality rate of depression of 30%, and out of those 30%, 20% will have a mortality rate, which means if you think about it, that's 6% mortality rate of people being self-quarantined itself in America, while coronavirus mortality rate is 3 to 4% according to the WHO. Factors or things that will happen to America if they keep quarantining itself. They say that depression will increase after 10 days being self-quarantined. And right now I'm stuck here for almost a month already. So I don't know how long this will continue. That's why a lot of people are going against the self-quarantine in America itself. So social distancing, it's a factor that a lot of people do not like. If we take extra precaution, other factors as wearing a mask, cleaning our hands, and keeping healthy, that's another part that maybe we could get rid of social distancing and do another things. We're still not sure if social distancing will affect coronavirus or flatten the curve itself. A lot of people saying it is. There's a lot of things that's showing that saying that articles saying that it is flattening the curve. But take another view regarding to it. We're looking at mortality rate of it. What's the death rate of it? And there's certain articles saying that the ventilators might not even help the patient itself. They increase the mortality rate. It doesn't affect the mortality rate. We all look at mortality rate. Is social distancing helping the mortality rate in America regarding to the coronavirus? A lot of people saying to flatten the curve, but another aspect is revitalize the American economy, decreases depression, suicide rate, mortality rate of depression itself regarding to social distancing. That's another something that to think about or have a concern. But I'm not here to overburden you. I'm here to give you another perspective of why some people are going against social distancing. Is regarding to happiness in America, stop the depression, and help America itself. Everybody has the same goal, which is be happy in America and return back to normalcy. Thank you.
Thank you for watching us and listening to us, and we'll talk to you guys later. Don't forget, like and subscribe down below. Thank you.